after the death of Jason, his successor tried to follow in his footsteps and return to Seleucia before the Seleucids did. However, with his lack of experience, this meant it would take more time to traverse that much ground. With our new thorax reform, some of our armies were in dire need of upgrades, Alexander's Syria most of all. So we decided to leave our front line unprotected for now, while that army returned to our military stronghold in Demetrius. Here we crafted our most high-tech army possible, an expensive one at that. But overall it will be worth it, as the army will possess Roman traitor legionaries, royal pikemen, elite sacred band, Syrian elephants and archers. It will take an entire year for this army to be ready, which in the grand scheme of things actually isn't all that bad. Our slowed down movement in Mesopotamia meant the Seleucids attacked the walls before we actually could arrive. Now under siege and in desperate need of help, we rushed to their aid. All the way out in the west, our invasion of the British Isles seems to have inspired the Gauls too. With already 2 armies on their way and a few to deal with the remnant Iceni forces on the mainland, this dump of an island will soon be ours. As Alexander's Phoenicia liberated the town, the Seleucids fled as far away as they possibly could. Nowhere near enough though, as we could easily pursue them. However, the commander of this attack would actually be Ptolemy IV Philopator. He's the son of Junior, making him a future pharaoh of Egypt. He did take charge of Alexander's Europus, who formerly was commanded by Lysimachus, the fallen prince. But I'm confident this lad is capable of greater things. He was a master of logistics and scouting after all. This is also why he received all the forces from Alexander's Phoenicia. Now, with a complete legion to obey him, he set his eyes upon the Seleucid hideouts within the mountain pass. This overall made us feel safe throughout our kingdom, giving us plenty of time to turn Armenia into a farming province filled with livestock and grain supplies for the harvest seasons. We also built this water tank suited for agriculture, a nice addition which we also prepared to add into the Syrian farming provinces. An unexpected development has taken place in Sicily. Somehow, the Carthaginians have actually managed to retake one of their lost holdings on the island, with the Romans nowhere to respond. Perhaps the power of the eagle has decreased. So was the thought process behind our colony guard, who chose to abandon their post in favor of an attack into Cisalpine Gaul now. They will need a few more pikes, but we are getting there. In Britannia itself, we were also recruiting new units, but this time it was more so the local variety. 3 units of chariots that will guide us through this disgusting land. Once Philopator entered the mountains, he sent out his scout to get the lay of the land. Apparently the Seleucids were mustering quite a formidable force, with the Parthavans sending forth yet another army. Having learned of this, the young prince chose to stand his ground and fortify his position. His father, however, had also launched an attack in the north. Despite most of the enemy garrison hiding in the forest ahead of us to create an ambush, our skilled tactics ensured we could easily overwhelm and surround the hostiles, making this an easy takeover, allowing us to freely take control of the town itself. From here we actually discovered another Parthavan army moving towards the Galatians, who by now have become a shell of their former glory. In Gaul, things were clearly heating up. The Iceni had coerced the Belgae tribes to fight on their side in this conflict, and thus win the decisive engagements taking place in our own turf. It would have been a major setback if not for us doing the same exact thing to them in their own island. This was now a race to eliminate the other first. Of course, the pharaoh was eager to participate and thus ordered Damianus to scout the enemy terrain for possible threats. At first it all seemed clear, but on our way towards Rete, we quickly discovered why we didn't find the second Britannic force. They were so intensely focused on taking down Ptolemy, they placed all their units around him. Thankfully well prepared for a moment like this, his veteran pikemen marched right behind him and swiftly reformed into a square formation for the pharaoh to stay safe behind. Our other units, such as the chariots and Galatian mercenaries, however, went nuts, chasing after the enemy just to be lured into ambushes all around us, the pharaoh and cavalry included. Yet as we discovered this ploy, we quickly returned to the battlefield and saved our pikemen who had been stuck in intense combat this entire time. After this close victory, we obviously killed all the captives and hunted down the last few stragglers. However, the ambush served its purpose as our casualties were so high we had returned back to our port settlement. Besides, winter was on its way, and it won't be kind to us. They did actually ask for peace afterwards, but as they weren't willing to bend the knee like so many others have done already, nothing came out of it. As expected, the winter was devastatingly harsh on us. Not even encamping could save us from this horrible weather we endured on this damned island. While that was going on, Junior and his son planned to pincer Epiphanes between them and effectively destroy the Seleucids once and for all. However, if that was to be a thing, we had to take Fraspa to the north, a more difficult challenge than it actually seems, with the Parthians guarding the silver mine with their infamous cataphract units. Nevertheless, we dared them to face us, despite the numbers advantage being in their favor. Expecting them to attack us from two sides, we ordered our pikemen to cover our rear, a just assumption as the Parthian cataphracts stormed through and around our lines without much effort. Our swordsmen tried their hardest to hold off the garrison forces with the assistance of our own cavalry, yet this only led to us delaying them from reaching the actual battle itself. The thing is, it might actually have been just enough to win this battle for us. I say that because once they had defeated our forces, we had pretty much mobbed up the Parthians. Witnessing this happen from afar, the Seleucid garrison redeployed on a hill close by. By now, most of our men were either dead, wounded, or extremely exhausted. Nevertheless, we once again pulled off our flank and overwhelm tactic. It sure left us with a victory, but a costly one at that. After the battle, we realized the locals actually were Greeks oppressed by the Seleucids, meaning they were more than willing to fill the ranks for our fallen warriors, once they received the necessary training, of course. But our series of threats doesn't seem to end there. As our army marched through Cisalpine, we realized the Apuani, our allies, are raiding down in the south. So instead of overcrowding that region, we marched for the walls of Medland, thinking it was an easy target. But no. Somewhere within the fog of war lies a Roman legion ready to strike. Immediately regretting our decision, we rushed back to reach Allied territory. But these bastard pigs kept up the pursuit, meaning we now have to thrash them in the cold. Honestly, this battle was flippin' weird. At first we had deployed all our troops at one crossing, expecting the Romans to show up there too. But on the contrary, they had actually constructed a bridge further upriver. This made us rapidly reform our lines to face their forces. Whereas we found their ballistae unguarded and sent out a cavalry unit to deal with them, the entire Roman army reverted back to the other side again of that river, as if they have changed their mind about fighting us. That was so up until our cavalry returned from the ballistae hunt, making the Romans cross the same exact bridge a third time. During the engagement itself, our center and right held strong, even gaining ground. Except for the left, the one closest to the river, where our men broke, forcing our pelters to get into close combat. But with the assistance of our commander, we prevailed and inevitably secured victory over the entire battlefield. Following the battle, we had suffered heavy casualties, more than we were willing to admit, basically calling this little expedition of ours a foolish attempt at gaining ground on a vulnerable enemy. You could actually say that it is the same thing the Morians are doing right now, except we are not exactly weak or vulnerable. Declaring war on us was a big mistake as we called in all our client states and allies. Initially, we feared some of them might betray us, but due to our previous bribing scheme, our relations were strong enough to make them honor their pledge. After having successfully taken Fraspa, Junior cleaned the region, making sure no enemies were behind us so we could keep the pressure on the Seleucids. Of course, the meaning was for him to team up with his son Philopater, but with this new Mauryan threat and no one to defend our lands bordering them, the young prince had to go down there instead. Back inside our prosperous home province, we began upgrading our library to a tier 4 level building. It stands as a beacon of all the knowledge we have acquired about the enormous world, but still not large enough to be considered a wonder yet. Despite our initial intentions of falling back, we saw the Romans actually were under heavy pressure by both our liberated Genuan allies and somehow also the Iberian nation. So obviously we had to go down there and make matters worse, despite our many casualties. Perhaps it is a sign of inexperience compared to the pharaoh, who finally returned to somewhat safe surroundings after his devastating ambush and winter. It will take time before he is ready to march anywhere again, which is kinda a bad thing as the Averni seems to have taken quite a heavy beating during this winter too, having lost almost all of their invasion forces. Even in Gaul, bad things are taking place. We are slowly losing the northern coast. We clearly need reinforcements, but being this far away from home, that simply isn't possible. Besides, I doubt our treasury could sustain it. Well, if we increase the taxes, sure, but that would just give us problems back home instead. With Alexander's Syria completely renovated, they marched north by accident as they didn't get the memo regarding the Mauryans attacking us in the southeast. They did realize this inevitably, but had to march even further now than they otherwise would have. Even worse is the fact that Philopater, who actually was on his way down there, got attacked by the last capable Seleucid army. He tried to retreat back to Seleucia, hoping to receive reinforcements from them, but we didn't get far enough. Luckily, we did outrun some of the Seleucid forces, giving us the upper hand in this battle. Knowing the Seleucids were extremely slow, we would take full advantage of our ballistae, whose rounds created absurd levels of chaos within the enemy army. We used our cavalry advantage to flank around while our heavy pikemen engaged the elite infantry. This battle certainly had more to do with brute strength and equipment over general battle tactics. Despite us not wanting to fight the Seleucids initially, this might actually have been the best possible outcome. Our hasty retreat got us even closer to the Mauryans while luring the Seleucids away from their walled barriers, which kept them safe. With them out from there, it meant Epiphaneia was completely unguarded, allowing Junior to arrive from the north and besiege the town. To make things even better, our spy could confirm no reinforcements were on their way, basically spelling the end of our ancient enemy. Back in Europe, we saw Arretium fall, a great achievement by our allies. However, this left their own strategically important town vulnerable, and with us knowing about the Romans located in Medlan, we took on our alliance obligations and chose to guard their lands. Sadly, we couldn't do the same in Gaul, where the Iceni have regained a foothold inside our territory. It is truly a terrible thing to happen, as we don't have a response to it. All we could do, which doesn't even have anything to do with our wars, is employ 2 new governors into our kingdom to increase our future income. It was only possible due to us embezzling the gold because Alexander's Syria simply being so damn expensive. I just hope that upkeep is worth it once we push on the Mauryans. Only time will tell.